Hello there, this is Daniel King reporting on round one of the London Chess Classic. I've managed to sneak away from the theatre and find a little quiet room in the offices at the tournament here. It's a little bit echoey, but hopefully it'll be quiet and we won't have too many disturbances. So let me tell you what's been going on in round one. We've had 3 decisive games so far, and there's actually one game still in progress. But okay, let's get you up to date with the game so far. So, McShane against Carlsen. Well, Luke and Magnus have had some great struggles in previous years in the London Chess Classic, and today's was no exception. It was a Spanish Berlin defence, and well, instead of all the pieces being traded off, in fact, Luke managed to get some initiative, and he's advanced his g-pawn here, which has given him some control squares on the king side, and indeed e5. You know, in some ways you could say this is quite anti-positional, but you know, because it gives away some control of f5. But actually, you know, these knights have the squares under control, and you know, white has a very pleasant initiative here. And Luke played knight e5, and here Luke said that he'd spent ages looking at the move queen b5. Well, in fact, Magnus played queen d6 quite quickly. But let me just show you the kind of variations that Luke was looking at during the game. This is a fantastic bit of calculation. So if queen b5, which I stress was not played in the game, Luke intended or was considering queen f3, and if queen takes b2, Luke had seen this amazing move, bishop takes g7, giving up the rook in the corner, but of course setting up some deadly threats on the king side. And here we go. The point is this: at the moment, white is a whole rook down, but the queen, of course, is miles away in Siberia in the corner here. Now, with knight g4, white sets up an incredible threat. Okay, let me just make a pass move for black and show you the threat. And now this was Luke's idea, queen g8. What a fantastic imagination he has. Now, of course, rook g8, we all know, and knight f7. But king takes g8, knight d7. Now, imagine being able to calculate this so far down the line. But then Luke said he saw knight f5, that gives the king an escape square, and then he wasn't sure about this, and you know, maybe black was all right here. And you know, can you imagine how much time this cost Luke? And indeed he was very short of time, and it turns out that this probably is better for black. But you know, after queen b5, I asked Magnus Carlsen after the game, well, you know, what did you think about queen b5? And he just said, well, I just thought b3 shut down counterplay for black, so yeah, I didn't bother to go any further. Well, there's the difference. Sometimes you only need to see one move ahead, and Magnus ended up playing queen d6. Now this is actually quite a critical moment in the game, because it's not easy to see how white can go forward. There were some of us English hackers who automatically reached for the f-pawn, but in fact, well, actually I don't like this move at all, because it's not exactly clear what the f-pawn is doing, but suddenly you can see that if this diagonal opened up, then there's serious counterplay. So not good. Luke said that, you know, he considered queen f3 here, but this runs into this tactic, and you know, black is obviously okay there. Luke also considered knight g4, and this endgame, well, it's obviously slightly better for white, but Magnus thought he should be okay here. Knight c8, round 2, d6, probably okay for black, but white slightly better. But Luke was trying for more, and he found king h1. Now this is kind of a prophylaxis, because if this c-pawn moves, so for example c5, then this tactic now works. The point is that queen takes g3 is no longer check, so knight e7 check. It's another Zwischenzug, and well, white is a healthy pawn up in that position. So a very neat tactical move, you know, nice tactic that Luke has seen there. The only problem is it allows this freeing tactic, the same tactic that Luke had seen against Queen F3, but in this case, you know, it's working again. He just completely forgot about it, and suddenly Magnus has managed to liberate his position, and, well, in this position, it's roughly equal, but Magnus managed to grind away as he does, and well, first of all, they reached this position, this endgame. There's already a little something already for black, but should be tenable for white. But slowly, I'm just going to reach the critical position. Magnus started to make progress. He started advancing his majority. Maybe this position isn't too serious, but as soon as Carlsen played King F6, you realise the writing was on the wall. At this point, Magnus said that he felt very confident indeed. It was a beautiful king manoeuvre, and suddenly white is in huge trouble, and there was some very nice manoeuvring indeed, and this manoeuvre in particular, making room for the king, and, well, made room for the bishop as well. Basically, Magnus managed to put this bishop on f2 and then play the king in, and, you know, his threat is just to play g4 and then push the h-pawn, and really there's nothing to be done about that. So it was, in the end, a very, very nice victory from Carlsen, but you have to feel very sorry for Luke because he played very enterprisingly and just missed a silly tactic. There you go. Okay, so Magnus has won his first game. Let's move on and look at Kramnik against Polgar. This is actually one of the first games to finish. Polgar had a very dubious opening and sacrificed a piece to get these four potentially dangerous pawns on the queen side. Now, I know we've leapt way ahead in the game. I'm afraid we haven't got time to go through all the moves. But basically, these pawns aren't too threatening on the queen side. You'll see that Kramnik is still a piece ahead. He has an extra bishop here, and he's starting to get the initiative on the king side. And here, well, there are very nasty threats indeed. Polgar played rook a6 to cover some squares on the 6th rank. But there was an absolute killer move from Kramnik now, beautiful move. Bishop d7, and this breaks the blockade. You can see now that the threat is to play queen takes bishop, and, you know, this is just absolutely hopeless. The point is that if queen takes bishop, then there's the beautiful geometric mate, and with the help of the rook on f1, that is checkmate. So basically this breaks black's blockade. So Polgar had to retreat the bishop, but now it's gone completely. I mean, Kramnik could play simply bishop b5, and if rook e6, then just queen c5. I mean, this is actually winning terribly simply, but, well, he played a kind of principled move. You know, he gave up rook for bishop, but that just means that these two bishops are racing all over the board, and, well, the game finished like this, with these two central pawns gone. And these two bishops, white is doing extreme well. It's just a winning position, and the rest was hopeless. Afraid Polgar is utterly lost here. Kramnik just had to hold the position together. There's nothing to be done here. And in this position, Judith resigned. I'm afraid she got caught out in the opening pretty badly, and really didn't have a very good position, but great technique from Kramnik at the end. You know, he plays with such power. Great stuff. Now, the third decisive game that we have so far was Aronian against Nakamura, who, well, they've played several times before in the London Chess Classic, and they always have interesting games, you know, both very enterprising, uncompromising players. And Hikaru actually played very unusual, slightly unusual, I should say, slightly unusual opening. So it's in English. And this move, E5, is a little bit unusual. I mean, obviously, this weakens these squares terribly. But he found a very interesting idea. Bishop B4 check is funny. And after bishop D2, this move A6. And, well, you know, one of the ideas is that you can, after bishop takes bishop, to play pawn takes. And this appears to be actually quite satisfactory for black. Aronian thought for some time, but didn't come up with anything terribly good. And after this move, D5, liberating, you know, black's central position, where you can see that black is just fine. You know, very straightforward development here. Whereas these knights treading each other's toes. I'm going to leap ahead because, you know, Hikaru had a very nice position. Basically here, you can see he's managed to advance his f-pawn and get this nice wedge. So, of course, later on he wants to be able to play knight e5. And, yeah, black is doing pretty well here, actually. It's funny, Hikaru said that in his strategy with pawns on f5 and e4, he had in mind a game of Aronians that he played against Giri in the Olympiad, and Aronian won a very nice game. He had that in his mind. Here, well, you know, maybe black is slightly better, but white can still do okay if he finds knight c3, attacking the bishop on d5, and that seems to be okay. But Aronian blundered. He played rook d2 and allowed this move, which is a very anti-positional move. I can understand why he didn't see it, because it looks very odd to block in this bishop, weaken a6 and weaken the knight. But tactically, it's a winning move, the point being that if knight a6, bishop b3 wins material, it's as simple as that. Queen takes c6, rook takes d2 is winning. So Aronian took on d5, but actually this made no difference at all. So black is the exchange up, and knight e5 is an excellent move. I know this bishop looks terrible, but in fact, you know, white's knights are also dreadful, and basically black is an exchange up, and he's crashing through the middle, and black is just winning this game. This was the game continuation. I mean, the ending is absolutely hopeless because black is breaking through, but this was the game. And this is equally hopeless. Black breaks through, and that's the end of that. There we go, 3 decisive results. Very exciting indeed. Always fighting chess at the London Chess Classic. There's one game still in progress, that between Gawain Jones from England and Michael Adams from England. And Adams is grinding away and has some advantage. Whether he can win or not, well, we'll see from the reports tomorrow. Thanks very much for listening. More reports later on in the tournament.